シルク、あれを見ろよ。
煙が昇ってる。
誰かが焚き火してるのかもな。なんかうまいもんにありつけるかもしれないぜ。
あんな場所でしないと思うけど、まあ気になるし、行ってみようか。
Hello everybody, I have some good news today. I can finally start to talk about Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition on Nintendo Switch because the preview embargo over the title has lifted. It's going to be a while before I can actually review it, but I have been playing it for quite a lot over the last week or so, and I can share some initial thoughts as well as gameplay footage. I will have more broad thoughts about the game up on digitallydownloaded.net as well, in written form, and of course I do encourage you to take a read of that, as there is quite a lot to talk about with regards to this title. But I thought that I would use this video to instead highlight one specific angle with regards to the game, and that is whether it's a true remake, a HD remaster, or something else. Because I do think that there's a little bit of confusion out there about what the exact purpose of this release is, and I think that this is now the third time that Nintendo has released this game, and you could argue that the third time is taking one too many dips without actually doing something substantial to the base experience. What's more, having already played some truly excellent remakes from Square Enix in the last couple of weeks, my expectations for what developers can actually do with a game like this are pretty high, and I was really interested to see what Nintendo might be able to do to encourage people to take another swing at the game. So to get it up front, I do believe that Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is a remake rather than a HD remaster of the original Wii title. It seems quite clear to me that the development team has gone back to the game to heavily rework it, particularly with the visuals, and they've brought all kinds of new art assets into every facet of this experience. Visually, it is a very different game this time around, and I do think that that has improved the experience considerably. Enemy monsters, for a start, convey so much more personality by virtue of the additional detail that has gone into them. And I remember actually struggling to enjoy a lot of the combat in the original Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii, simply because most of the normal enemies, not the bosses but the normal enemies, didn't do much to capture the imagination. This time around, even the smallest and most common enemy has a much greater level of detail in them, and where two different types of enemies share the same base model design, such as those rabbit things that you see at the start, now they are distinguishable enough from one another to make the experience of fighting them much more enjoyable as a result. It feels less like a grind to get through the basic enemies. For a game where the developers were aiming to convey a sense of epic scale, the visual redesign has also been self-evidently helpful. Those moments where you get to look across vast expanses of land have so much more impact when you can now appreciate the details that are in the far distance. Xenoblade Chronicles shares a little something with Dark Souls in this regard, not that the games play anything like each other on any level, but with Dark Souls, it was a kind of experience where you would look out from a vantage point and spot places that looked really intriguing, and you would know at that point that you were going to be exploring them at some point quite soon. Xenoblade Chronicles has exactly the same sense of scale and world building, and the remake has been worthwhile for the way that it has enhanced that world building alone. The game finally has characters that are detailed enough to make dressing them up in swimsuits worthwhile too. Now this is pure fan service of course, but I do like doing that, and it is so much easier to connect with these characters when they're not just a blocky mess. While I'm no fan of the English voice track, with the Japanese voice track on, I find myself much more invested in the characters and their story this time around, despite having experienced it 3 times before, and that's entirely because of the visual upgrade. The developers are well aware of this too, and you can actually now select a character design that is independent of the equipment that they have equipped. So for example, you could put your character in the heaviest armor possible, and therefore benefit from the statistic improvements that that armor conveys, but then have them visually represented as running around in their swimmers if you like. This is a really small feature, but it highlights the simple reality that this game finally has the visual engine that it deserves. Xenoblade Chronicles has always been an impressive effort to shove something huge into consoles that shouldn't be able to run games with such scope. But with a Switch, the game finally gets the visual design that it also deserves. Now, with all of that said, while this game is indeed a remake as far as the visual engine is concerned, I can't help but feel a little disappointed that the development team haven't done more to remake the rest of the game. If you look at the two recent Square Enix titles, for example, Trials of Mana took a flat 2D sprite game from the Super Nintendo and gave it the full 3D treatment. While the base narrative, characters and flow of that game remained the same, the shift in perspective made sure that the game felt fresh to play. Xenoblade Chronicles Remake has a completely new engine and genuinely has a remade set of visuals, but there's no change in perspective or the fundamentals in how the game is actually played. The base game is already exceptional, of course, but it nonetheless doesn't feel as fresh to play as that Mana remake. The Xenoblade Chronicles Remake also doesn't deconstruct the game to build it, as is what happened with the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, I know that remake didn't stick the landing for some fans, but you can't deny that it was a huge creative effort to do in the first place, and a big risk. Square Enix didn't mess around on the edges of Final Fantasy VII. They took the foundations that were set by the original game and built a whole lot of new things over the top. In doing so, they dared to challenge the expectations and understanding that people had of that beloved original game. Yes, it was a huge creative risk, and while I fully acknowledge that it wasn't what everybody wanted, I really admire the artistic integrity of that game for sticking to such a strong creative vision and being willing to take risks in order to meet it. The fact that a lot of people did love that game as well, it's not just me, a lot of other people did, that shows that Square Enix was actually rewarded for the effort. In contrast to what Square Enix did with both games, they could have fallen flat for the changes that they made to both. The Xenoblade Chronicles Remake doesn't take any risks. It was developed knowing that it was already a good game, and the people that thought it was a good game are going to think that this remake is also a good game, but it doesn't do anything to change things up or give people something new. There is some new content which has been added, which I'll hold until the review to actually talk about, but that content is additional to the base game and not nearly as tightly integrated into some of the other definitive editions that we've seen recently, such as Persona 5 Royal, and it's certainly not enough to constitute a reworking of the game, as it doesn't change the base game in any meaningful way. You are still playing the same game you already played on the Wii, whether or not you engage with that new content. Again, there's nothing wrong with the base game in Xenoblade Chronicles, so don't get me wrong, I'm certainly not criticizing it, and as you'll see with my review, unless something goes drastically wrong in the later half of this remake, it's going to be a very positive review. I'm not suggesting that the developers even needed to change it. This is what they wanted to do, and they've definitely hit the brief with it. But I can't help but feel, as somebody who enjoys video games as an art form, that there is such a level of creativity in Xenoblade Chronicles. It would have been nice to see the developers try to engage with it in some way that could have enhanced its themes, added to its themes, or just extended what we already took out of the game. Unfortunately, that is just not present here. So I'm certainly not suggesting that this is a lazy effort, because there is a lot of work that has gone into this thing, especially in that visual engine. It is really impressive. But it's limited. It's not lazy, it's just limited. Now, I do want to add the caveat here that I'm only about 10 hours into the game, as the clock states, and it has been a meandering 10 hours. As anybody who has played Xenoblade Chronicles knows, there is a lot of side quests and missions that you can undertake, and I am going through all of those. It's not essential to hunt down all these monsters and items, but I am anyway, because I'm actually really enjoying myself, and I just want to. So really, in 10 hours, I'm barely past the introduction, and there is so much more room for the new features to expand and genuinely start to enhance the game. I am certainly open to the possibility that that might happen. So really, this video is a first impressions, and if I was to summarize those impressions, I would say that I'm having a really great time with it, and I'm genuinely amazed by the visual work that has gone into this game. But at the same time, I am a little bit disappointed at this stage that I am playing the exact same game over again for the third time. It's actually more than the third time, because I played the 3DS one at least twice through. I'm pretty sure I played the Wii one at least twice through. So I played this game quite a lot over the years, and I was just aching for there to be a little bit more to Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition than I am getting at this stage. But again, once again, I'm having a great time. Please don't hate me if you're a Xenoblade Chronicles fan. I am really enjoying this game, and I'm pretty sure that the end result come review time will be very positive indeed. So anyway, that's enough of this video. Thank you very much for having a watch. Hope it was interesting. If you haven't seen Xenoblade Chronicles before, then do be aware that this game is a time sink, and you will spend a lot of time playing this on release. But as we have discovered, Nintendo doesn't have that much planned for the rest of the year. So this might be the time sink that you're looking forward to, that will keep you going until Nintendo gets around to announcing whatever comes next. Please do like and subscribe my videos if you enjoy what I'm doing. That way you won't miss any. I've also got a nice little community tab going as well on my YouTube page now. So I put announcements and various things that I'm doing on the DDNet website as well there. So you won't miss anything that I've done, which hopefully you find interesting. If you do enjoy my videos also, please do consider backing me on Patreon, because that really does help, and the money goes straight back into the YouTube page and everything else I do with DDNet, so it's it's worth it. Anyway, we will see you at the next video.